Welcome back to the After Actions podcast. This is the only podcast on the market where we're going in an in-depth behind the screen view of what happens inside of a Marine Corps recruiting office, military recruiting offices in general. We're giving you the answers to the questions you have. Why are my recruiters asking me these questions? Why are my recruiters telling me to do this? If you're a parent, you got questions too. Sometimes the things these recruiters are telling your kids kind of sounds weird. Well, me myself, I've been a recruiter for 3 years. I did that fairly successfully. I even ran a recruiting substation once upon a time. And my co-host over here, this is Ant. He's still currently an active duty service member. We work together on recruiting duty, and we got a lot of years of experience. And we're here to answer you guys' questions. So, without further ado, we're going to talk today about the stressors of recruiting duty. There are many, and it's weird because you think about a recruiter and you think about this happy-go-lucky person with a big old smile on their face because they're trying to intrigue the civilian, whoever it is that they're trying to approach. But really, I know, Ant knows. Hey, there's some darkness in our heart. Like, hey, we might not be happy to be out there. So I'm gonna go ahead and pass it over here to Ant. Ant, what do you got? What are some of the things that you have about stressors of recruiting duty?
Oh man, we could probably talk on this for a while because there's such a plethora of stressors. Because I mean, just for example, you got the applicant trying to find someone that's qualified in the standards the Marine Corps sets for that.
Yeah.
Um, Family, external stuff that's not even internal to recruiting. It's just your family being able to see them when you're not around.
Mm-hmm.
How that affects them, how that plays into your job. Your boss, depending if they're a good boss or not. How
Yeah.
they involved with you? Are they trying to teach you if you have any downfalls? What I mean? Other recruiters, what I mean? Because it's a culture inside
Yeah.
there. And if you're not working as a team, sometimes, someone's pulling more weight than the other. And then, y'all kind of going at it because y'all want to pick up that slack. There's so many stressors when it comes to recruiting duty that people don't know about. But
Yeah.
like you said, bro, as recruiters, we flip that switch. You know what I mean? Like I could be
Yeah.
real bad day, but as soon as I see that parent, as soon as I see that applicant, as soon as I'm talking to someone that I need to talk to, all of a sudden it's professional coming out. I'm happy, I'm go lucky, but man, there's so many stressors.
Bro, that's a great point. It's literally like when you find a kid that actually has interest in joining the military, it's almost like catching a high or something. It's
Oh,
like, oh my God, your adrenaline goes through the roof because you're like,
gotta
wait,
get them.
I've been looking for days for somebody just to be interested in having an interview. And all of a sudden, this person was like, yeah, like I've been wanting to do this for all these years or something. Or maybe you just convinced them or whatever. But when they say yes, like I'm interested in being a Marine, it's like, oh man, you start getting the butterflies,
Start
the
smiling.
thrill of, yeah,
Yep.
exactly. But then, of course, we got somebody who says, yes, yeah, I'm interested in being a Marine, but maybe they look a little bit overweight, maybe they look like they might be going through something, but we got all these screening questions we have to ask them just because they have to be qualified to even sit down and have an interview, right? So
Yep.
um we're being pushed, by our boss. So if y'all didn't catch the first episode, I'm putting the link down in the description, but Ant and I, we started off both canvassing recruiters. We were recruiting together in the same recruiting substation. And then eventually our boss left, our other co-host. Uh, Eventually he left and I took over the seat. And, it was somebody like me that's sitting here pushing Ant. We go from being in the streets together, right?
Yep.
He was better at some things than I was better at. And I was better at some things than he was. We both had our strengths, we both had our weaknesses. But now that I'm the boss, I go from being like in the trenches with my guy to, hey, dude, you need an appointment. And not just anybody who says yes, you need somebody who is qualified to sit down at the table,
Yep.
right? We have this thing called iCombat-V, and it's just like an acronym. It's got a list of different things that will qualify somebody, so on and so forth. Now, if Ant sets an appointment with somebody, I'm probably going to call that kid and be like, hey, I just wanted to, it's called confirming the appointment,
It's just legit.
inspecting what I expect, right? So not only do I need Ant to have appointments, but those appointments turn to interviews and those interviews potentially turn to contracts. So if he's setting appointments just because he knows I'm poking him for appointments, but that kid isn't actually qualified, that's turning into a whole issue. So me being the boss, I'm calling, I'm confirming, and then Ant's sitting over there like, man, this dude sitting here told me he wanted an appointment. Like we haven't had an appointment in a day or 2 days or so. I found him a guy who said, yes, I'll sit down with you. And now he's sitting here trying to tell me I can't sit down with him. So Ant, tell me a little bit about like, your experiences with that.
Bro, so if we're talking about just the applicant and stress of that, that's probably the biggest stressor of all because the Marine Corps got such high standards, which is good. You know what I mean?
Right.
We're worried about the quality, not the quantity. And so we have a smaller market that we got to target certain individuals by other branches and stuff, whether it's age, whether it's tattoos, whatever the case may be. Like, we're our market is a lot more smaller than most branches. So
Mhm.
it's like you said, like getting out and finding someone. And like you mentioned earlier, sometimes some people are better than other, people when it comes to recruiting in certain ways that we recruit. Because I
Yep.
give you step by step by step. Hey, is it a telephone call? Is it online like you? Like I said, the first episode, like, bro, I never really seen you leave the office, but you have bodies for day because you have
Yep.
good social media presence. You know how to, that was a movement. We're in that, time in our lives where a lot of people are interested when it comes to social media. That's how you get in that audience and stuff like that. That's how you get people interested, and you're
Right.
phenomenal at that. I wasn't. I'm
Yeah.
surprised you've been doing this. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
so like me, I was one that I got to go, walk and find someone. So I'm hitting up the malls. I'm hitting up the high schools. I'm in my AO
Hmm.
trying to find the people that I need. And again, like I can talk to 12 people and I can get 12 no's. So finding a qualified applicant that's actually interested in what the Marine Corps has to offer or what I have to say to them, that is by far the hardest thing because again, like sometimes I'm like, hey, they may be good and I didn't ask the right question, but I'm like, hey,
Hmm.
boss, hey, I got someone. They want to come in tomorrow and then you hit them up and then you're calling them and then you're asking your screening questions too, like you got to do. And then you find someone and you tell me like, hey, did you ask him this? I'm like, you know what? I forgot. And you're like, yep, he's disqualified. So I got to go right back out and start the process all over again to find someone new. So it's
Yeah.
very hard. It's very stressful and stuff like that. But I mean, don't tell me about you, man. Like you were recruited before you're a boss, like
Yep.
tell me what was the hardest part for you when it came to that finding an applicant that was qualified.
Yeah, well, the thing is, right? So a lot of people have this idea like, hey, this guy's a United States Marine, like he's got no problem walking up to people, introducing himself, asking them like, hey, will you come with me and potentially sign 4 years of your life away to join the United States Marine Corps or the military,
Yep.
right? Well, I
Yep.
will I will tell you, like, although I brought kids into the office. I got them to sign the dotted line. They enlisted. Those people that I put in, they're staff NCOs today. Um, every single time I approached a kid, I was nervous. Every single time, like
Never know that. We'll never know that.
I'm telling you, it's like, oh, I see, like I got a bird's eye view of this kid way over here. He looks like he's qualified. I know I still got to ask him these qualifying questions and whatnot, but man, I think I'm going to talk to him. Like before I approach him, in my head, I'm telling myself, you got this. You got this. You a fucking Marine, bro. You're a Marine. That's just a kid. Like, what are you even worried about? I'm having this internal conversation with myself before I approach any kid, even if I'm making phone calls. The only time where it's like not so stressful is like if it's like a DM, like if I'm online, like on Instagram or something like that. Like then it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna talk real smooth. Like some people, like when they're dating, they can text real smooth, but when they get in
Yep.
front of a person, they kind of
Freeze
trip
up.
over their words.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's kind of like that. But I would literally hype myself up, like, dude, you're a Marine, like go and talk to this kid and don't take no for an answer, and those are the things that I would do. Now I had like different programs that I would use to talk to kids. I hated calling because I don't know about you, but if I don't have a number saved in my phone, I'm not picking up. I'm not picking up, and I
That's
feel like
everybody.
most people think the same exact way.
Yep.
But the Marine Corps, like the standards, like the people who are pushing us to recruit and learn recruiting duty this way, bro, they've been teaching stuff that worked for them 10 years ago.
Yep. Good
Like,
times. Yep.
oh, well, when I was in the streets, I was recruiting 10 people a day, and then I was blowing up these phone lists. Dog, that does not work. Have you
Yep.
all had, hey, and this is not a hit against today's generation of kids. They don't talk on the phones, buddy. Like
Yep.
they just don't. So I am not going to waste my time calling these numbers when I know they're not going to answer. When they do answer, it's just like, oh, recruiter, click. No, dude, I'm either using social media or I'm going out there and I'm meeting kids. I'm connecting my eyes to their eyes, like, oh, yep, I'm coming and I'm talking to you. And that's what worked for me. And the funny thing is, like, They knew that, like, they, as in my boss's boss, they knew, hey, this guy, he's bringing in bodies, he's bringing people in, they're signing up. We're going to step back on the fact that we're looking at his numbers, because we get graded, right? We get graded on how many DMs are we sending, how many phone calls are we making, how many people are we meeting in person, because we have to record all that information. And they'll look at my phone calls and be like, this man didn't make contact with a soul. But because I was putting people in, they didn't care. Now, like you mentioned,
don't fix it.
Yeah, like you mentioned, right? You don't see me really leave the office, but when I did leave the office, I came back with somebody, and it didn't matter if I left the office to go and pick them up because I've already coordinated that, or man, my pot is empty. I got no kids. I got nobody to put into the Marine Corps today. Let me go to the gas station down the street. I will go to the gas station and I will find a soul to bring to the office right now. Like, that's just how I operated, right? So what about you? So, like, hey, just so y'all know, if you haven't seen episode number 1, Ant's still a uniform service member, so he is a little bit limited on what he can say. I will say some of the things that he might be thinking, right?
Appreciate you.
I'll say some of the things that he might be thinking, but he might not be able to say everything. But Ant, I mean, I know you know exactly what I'm talking about. Like, if your schedule says you're supposed to be making these phone calls and you're sitting there wasting your time because people aren't picking up the phone, like, how does that make you feel? Like, what do you think about it?
Bro, it's crazy. It's disheartening because like, we get monthly objectives per each recruiting way to do it. Like, hey, if I'm going outside and I'm gonna go physically walk and find people, I gotta this many people at that many times to know that it's a successful activity. When you're talking about phone calls, I think I got to a point where, like, my minimal phone calls, the minimal to meet monthly was like 1,500 phone calls.
Yeah.
Which is an absurd amount. And when you hit that first, if I'm doing that for an hour at the beginning of my day, and I'm doing like 20 phone calls, and it's either a disconnected number, it's a parent that's like, no, like, it just gets so disheartening, man. It's like, I don't want to do this. You know what I mean? Like, if I go and do something else, maybe I'll get, lucky, but you know what I mean? Like, when you're struggling, like I did to begin with, like, that's what I'm saying. It's structured. Like I said in episode 1, like, it's structured, and it doesn't mean it's going to work. But, if you do these things, eventually one of those activities that we're supposed to do is going to click.
Yeah.
With social media, I said mine was more going and approaching people. But, like, we're talking about stress. We're talking about applicants. We've talked about, going and finding them. Another stressor is once we actually get them and actually bring them into the office. That's a whole different stressor right there, man. Because, like, all right, cool. We talked, had a, 10, 15-minute conversation. Set the appointment, you confirmed it, they're coming in tomorrow at 08. Now, on top of that, I got to switch. So I'm like, all right, what do I got to say to this person? I actually got to really dig down deep, connect with this individual to let them know that the Marine Corps can give them the stuff that they're trying to find in life. Which is a plethora of anything. That's why we have the benefit tags that are sitting there to kind of help structure that conversation. But still, connecting with the individual, man, that's just a stressor on its own, man. I don't know about you. You tell me. I mean, did you not feel the same way? It was a different part of a stressor when it came to them sitting down.
Absolutely. Yeah, it sure was. And it's funny because sometimes, like, I'll come into the day and I don't have an appointment for the day. And if I don't have an appointment, I feel like I'm not carrying my own weight. So at that point, I come in and I'm hunting. I'm like, I'm going to find a same day. We call it a same day. You find somebody and you set an appointment, and then you actually sit down with them, and now they turn into an interview. So I'm hunting. I'm trying to find the same day, and I'll go out there. I mean, it didn't always work. Don't get me wrong, but a lot of the times, if I didn't have something, I was going to find something. So when you find that same day, you don't have that preparation time. Like, okay, well, how do I want to approach this kid? He seemed like he was into these types of things, because when we set that appointment, we're supposed to ask some questions, that gives us a little bit of information about what that kid is, what kind of interests does he have, what kind of family does he come from, that way we can ask the right questions when we sit down with them. But you don't always have time to do all of those things. Yep. And I remember one time I brought a guy into the office, and and I was already, aside from this appointment that I was having, I was already stressed out because hey, a little bit of shots fired, but you didn't have a contract.
Yep, yep.
I had already put 2 in, but I'm still trying to put more in so that we as an office can make our monthly mission. And the other recruiters and whatnot, they have nothing either, right? So I remember I'm sitting there, I bring this kid into the office, and I bring this kid into the office and I'm interviewing him. I'm like, I'm gonna have this kid say, yes, I want to be a Marine today. He didn't wake up thinking nothing about the military, but he going to bed knowing he about to become a Marine, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
That's the only prep I had. I'm gonna get him to say yes. Yep. So as I'm sitting here, I'm trying to go in depth. I'm trying to ask him the right questions. Trying to tell him the right information, which also requires a lot of, it's not just you talking, it's you thinking, you processing. And so as I'm doing this, you and the other recruiters were like in the office and y'all were like bullshitting, whatever, just fucking around. And I remember like I was like, I looked at my applicant. I was like, hey, can you hold on for a second?
Yep.
I stand up and I was like,
Yep.
y'all shut the fuck up. I'm trying to do an interview right now and give this kid everything I have so he knows he wants to be a United States Marine.
I remember that.
Shut the fuck up. And mind you, I just met this kid and I sit back down, right? And so first of all, I actually was mad at that time because
I believe that's
I'm in the moment.
Yep.
But I didn't mean to like offend anybody or anything like that. But when I get in the moment and I get mad, my hands start getting shaky and I gotta take a couple deep breaths and calm myself back down. So I popped up, I screamed like that right in front of my kid. I sit back down and I was like, I put my hands on the desk. I'm like,
that's sweet.
Hey, brother, I apologize that you had to see me like that, but I just need you to know that I'm giving you everything that I got to let you know that this is a great option for you. And I just went right back into it. And sure enough, he said, yes, I do want to be a Marine. That kid went to MEPS the next week. And I mean, I don't know where he is now. He might still be in the Marine Corps or whatever. So like, that's another type of stressor where it's like, yeah, I've got to get the appointments. I got to get the interviews and everything like that. But sometimes, the other recruiters aren't pulling their share of the weight. And that's a whole nother set of stressors. What do you think about that?
No, I absolutely agree. And that's funny that you said that because like, that's what I mentioned earlier, man. Like recruiters can be an additional stressor as well, too.
Yeah.
And just talking about myself, you know what I mean? Like, everybody's starting to know when I first got on recruiting duty, man, I fought that duty so much. I didn't want to do it. So like I wasn't giving it my all. I was just kind of like, what happened? What happens happens. And again, like, it took me a while to realize like, like I am putting stress on you because I'm doing my job. Right. So you're having to interview more people, you know what I mean? Now you can't see your family and your kids because I'm having you stay late because I'm not doing my job. Yeah. And in incidents like that where, me and the other recruiters are just fucking around, talking and joking, not really caring what you're doing. You had to stand up and check us and stuff like that. So other recruiters do that, and then vice versa. And kind of whenever you became the boss, and for a little bit, I was your go-to guy. Like, hey, put in bodies. Hell yeah. The other recruiters are not doing what they're supposed to do, and I'm doing the same thing you were doing to me. Like, hey, I need you to do the fucking job. Like, I got wife and kids at home that I'm trying to see and spend time with and stuff like that. And also, I'm here trying to give this, this applicant, eventual pulley and my all, let them know that I am genuinely interested in them, what they got to say, and tell them how the Marine Corps can be that, that item, that tool for them to help them succeed and stuff. But recruiters definitely play a part in that too. Yeah. And I mean, even good stress, there's good and bad stress, but even good stress too. Like, I know the first couple of times when I interviewed someone, like I was stressed out interviewing them, and you'd come in and jump in and you'd see where I'm struggling. Yep. Trying to, build this, relationship with this Marine, and you jump up and you sit there and try to talk, talking to them. Yeah. Because, you're like, hey, we need this kid, has a good opportunity to be in the Marine. So it's like little stressors like that, man, in which people don't understand, like, because we don't display it. We're taught not to display it. But like that. And again, like just going to this applicant, like that's only part of the stressors when it comes. The first part is meeting them. The second part is, interview them. And then the third part is getting them to MEPS and then getting them contracted. And then depending on where we at for up to a year with this applicant who's now a pulley in the delayed entry program, getting ready to go to Marine Corps boot camp, like that's just stress on itself too, because by the time they become a pulley, as you know, like I'm everything to them. I want to be everything to them. I want to be their
Mhm.
friend. I want to be their father. I want to be their brother, a mentor in the Marine Corps. Like I'm trying to be everything for them and
Yeah.
stressing them to that. Like I'm here. I'm here to support you. I'm here to do what needs to be done. So you're overall successful. You're ready to go to boot camp mentally, physically, emotionally. And that's a stress, man. Like that stress that I don't think a lot of people know because again, we're sitting there smiling all the time. We're drinking our energy drinks, smoking our cigarettes, doing whatever we got to do. But
Yeah.
like that's such a stress. Like I mean, as the boss, like, man, some of these kids, they'd be in there for like 2, 3 months and then they'd want to leave. So you got to re-engage them. And that's just stress.
Mhm.
Come in, like, talk to me. Like, what's
Yeah.
going on? 2 months ago, you were all about it. Like, what kind of changed? And that's something Marine Corps tells you, every 30, 60 days, man, like circumstance, feelings, goals change with these individuals.
Yeah.
So being able to sit down there and continue to talk to them like, hey, this is why you chose the Marine Corps. Like, what changed from here? All right, so now you're thinking about this. All right, cool. Let me tell you how the Marine Corps can give you this. And that's just a step, a stressor into,
Yeah.
what we do with, these kids and how, that affects us on recruiting duty. But I talked about it earlier, man. Like, another stressor to me, and I don't know, tell me how you feel about it, is families. Like, how do you feel about families and the stress that brought to recruiting? How you feel about that?
Man, yeah, I mean, you made you made a lot of great points right there. I mean, the applicant, the interview, the hopefully the poolee, like
Yep.
there's stress that comes with each of them because first of all, I'm gonna answer your question, but first of all, like when you are setting this appointment, your interest level is like way up here,
Absolutely.
right?
Yep.
You're setting the appointment, you interview them, they say, yes, I want to be a Marine, and your interest just keeps climbing and climbing, your interest as a recruiter. And then
Yep.
they enlist, and you're like, oh, yep. And it's like you're almost peaked. But now that person enlisted, the thought process on recruiting duty is, what have you done for me lately?
Yep.
That kid's in now. He's already enlisted.
Yep.
So
Starting to cycle over.
your interest with that kid, it plummets because now you're searching for the next one,
Yep.
right? And it's a little bit unfair to the now poolee.
Yep.
If you guys don't know what a poolee is, it's somebody who is enlisted but hasn't gone to boot camp yet. So they show up and they work out with us. We get them ready for boot camp and everything like that. But they usually have like a ship date to go to boot camp months down the line. So that's a poolee. And our job is to make sure that these poolies are ready. However, the interest drops because we still need to find the next person that spikes our interest. So those are all stressors right there. We'll get into that a little bit later. But as far as family goes, man, it's tough. It's tough because families don't necessarily, they're not the ones that got orders to go to recruiting duty.
Yep.
They're not the ones that are getting poked and pushed by the boss, by the boss's boss. And, oh, hey, you haven't done anything for me. So, hey, you need to go and drive 2 hours this way to the very border of your AO and call me when you get there. Hey, boss, I just drove 2 hours. I'm there. Okay, take a picture of this street sign. Boom, take a picture, send it to me. Okay,
Yep.
cool. I know you're there. Come back to the office. You waste my time, I'm gonna waste yours. So
Yep.
you're literally going through what we would call fuck games as the recruiter. And by the time you come home, dude, I'm telling you, I know everybody handles this stuff differently, but for me, I'm a very introverted individual. I never have gone out of my way to seek a conversation. That's just not who I am. I keep my friends close. I keep my family close, and that's about it.
Yep.
Like, I mean, I could just say with me and you, like, we're very good friends. Do we text on a regular basis? No. But when we hit each other up, it's like, oh man, bro, it's like we just talked yesterday. That's like that's my personality. That's a little bit about how you are as well. But your family who hasn't seen you for hours, you get up and go to work before they're awake. You come home, your kids might already be asleep. I'm telling you, we're literally we're showing up at, our show time was 8 o'clock in the morning. But me, like, being how I was, like, for me, 8 o'clock in the morning means I'm up and I'm already on the computer. I'm up and running by 8 o'clock. So I'm showing up at like 7:30. And when I became the boss, it became even earlier. Yep. So I'm getting up and I'm going to work. I'm gone by 7. I'm coming home sometimes 9. I think it was very regular for us to go home at 9.
Yeah, that was an early day.
Yeah. 9. We're talking 9 o'clock p.m. 2100, y'all.
Yep.
But a lot of times it was even later. Um, so by the time we come home, like, yeah, my ex-wife now, yeah, hey, on recruiting duty, we got the 3 R's. You're supposed to end the duty with your 3 R's, and that's your ring, your ribbon, and your rank. I
Yep.
failed. So but yeah, so I'm coming home, and maybe my wife at the time was still up, maybe she's asleep, whatever. But I'm come home, I eat something, I'm ready to go to bed, you know this kind of like it's awakening, because now that I've completed the duty, there's so many things that I wish I would have done differently. Like, my kids deserved that time with me. They were so young. Like, you know, it's almost like I became a stranger to them because they were so young, and their mom was always there to soothe them, comfort them, take care of them. But then I just show up and they're like, "Who is this guy? We haven't seen him in a while,"
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's so many stressors there, and your family was not the ones who signed up for this. Sometimes we weren't the ones who signed up for it. We signed up to be a Marine, but we got forced to go to recruiting duty. But
Preach.
now,
Yep.
yep, but now your family has to go through this with you. And that can be a hard thing. I went through ups and downs with my kids, with my wife at the time. And I mean, by the time that duty ended, we had gone our separate ways, because in my head I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna push hard, I'm gonna get promoted on this duty, I'm gonna do this and that. And I'm thinking like, yeah, we got our problems, but everything's gonna be all right.
Yep.
We're gonna get orders, we're gonna fix it all on the back end. It's always the back end. Well,
Unfortunately.
yeah, sometimes you don't make it there. um yeah, so I mean, that's kind of like some of the family stressors that I was going through. What about you? Do you have anything that you had to go through?
Oh, bro. I mean, you hit it right on the fucking head, man, when it comes to the family and the stresses of recruiting duty. Because, unlike the typical, fleet Marine Force, like, everybody in the fleet, they work, the 08 to 16:30,
Yeah.
4:30. On my recruiting duty, there's no hours. You know what I mean? There's plenty of times,
Right.
depending if we're successful or not successful, like we're either coming in at 6, 7, just
Hmm.
stuff ready to start briefing, our schedule to the boss,
Yep.
at 8 o'clock. And then again, like you said, 2100, 9 o'clock is an early day. There's plenty of times where like, no, like, hey, we're behind, we're behind. We need to, get bodies. So we're there to like 2 or 3 in the morning. So the family's
Yeah.
suffering because they're not seeing you. And, and the little times that we got off early, what do we do? Like, hey, like we're all stressed out. You the boss, like, hey, let's go bond and kind of de-stress, or let's go to
Yeah.
the bowling alley, let's go drink a couple beers. Next thing you know, we're out 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning coming home for the same thing. So it's like it's just
Yeah.
building with the family. And again, like you said, like hindsight, like I wish I could have done things different, because the times that we did get off early, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I'm there and I don't want to do nothing. Like I'm tired, I'm stressed out, like I don't want to go back
Yeah.
to work. So like I'm sitting there in front of my TV and I don't want to do nothing. My wife and my kids, they want to go out and hang out and spend time with dad, but I'm like, no, leave me alone. Like I'm just trying to,
Yep.
decompress real quick before I go back and face it again on recruiting duty. And I mean, and too, because it got to a point that happened so much that my wife is like, hey, me and the kids were going back to Texas, like we
Yeah.
can't do it no more. And I came up to you crying. I was like, hey, boss, like I need some time off.
Yep.
My wife just left me, and
Yep.
you were able to give me a couple of days. And eventually, like I said, like I'm still married, so it worked.
Hmm.
We were, we stayed together and stuff like that. But if I could go back, man, like I would, like I said, it goes back to effort of the individual. There's so many
Yeah.
circumstances that play a part into it. Whether I'm actually doing my job right and stuff like that. But what I mean, like I would have gave more effort to my family to show them that they're still a priority in my life. But it's hard because recruiting,
Yeah.
to be successful recruiting, you got to kind of put it on a pedestal, man.
Yeah.
You got to put everything into recruiting to be successful, to have a decent time.
Yep.
Like I said, like I told you on the first episode, like during recruiting duty, I hated it. Towards the end, when I got off, I enjoyed it
Yep.
because I realized all the things that I did and how I grew, the relationships with, just you, Lou, and other Marines, and then the people I put into the Marine Corps that I still see to this day. Like, eventually, like I said, it did well, but the stresses and what it put onto the family. I mean,
Yeah.
bro, do you remember that one time? It was my son's first ever baseball game. And you're like, yeah, you can go to the baseball game. And
Yeah.
we had two pulleys that were acting an ass during school.
Yeah.
And so we brought him in, and I was like, I'm trying to go to the baseball game. You're like, nope, we got to take care of these, because if they don't fix themselves, the school's gonna, not let them graduate. and I was livid, man. Like I wasn't able to see my
Yeah.
son's first baseball game, and like I said, like it's just little stuff like that, man. Little stuff
Yeah.
like that. But I think what plays even a bigger part in stressors in recruiting duty is the leadership, bro. I don't know
Hmm.
if you do, and I'm not talking particularly in the RSS. I'm talking about in the RS. So,
Yep.
like, I mean, do you feel the same way? Do you feel like the leadership plays a part into that as well when it comes to
Oh,
stressors?
dude, I think the leadership plays the biggest part. Easily plays the biggest part because, of course, right. Whether it doesn't matter what your job is, whether you're a recruiter, a drill instructor, admin like me, whatever. Every single Marine has a mission, right? Our
Yep.
mission is to find people. Their mission is to make sure that, like their like headquarters mission, our senior leaders, their mission is to make sure that they recruit and ship the correct amount of people to the Marine Corps recruiting depot. And if they don't, as we know, stuff kind of rolls downhill. Well, this is some. So me as a canvassing recruiter, I never really had to deal with um, the higher leadership fucking with me. I just didn't, right? Because I
Yep.
was putting people in. I mean, I think I went 6 or 7 or 8 months in a row writing 3 contracts a month. And some recruiters might come into the comments and be like, "Oh, that's it." It depends on the area you in. All right,
Yeah.
it depends on the area you in. So I'm writing like months on months of putting 3 people in, and these people are shipping to boot camp. These people are graduating boot camp. Now I might be wrong, but if I'm thinking back, I think I only sent one person to boot camp that I personally enlisted that did not make it through boot camp. So, and I'm proud of that number. Like I got them right here. I literally got them right here on my wall. They come
Yep.
back, they give me their little picture and everything like that. Very proud of that. Um, but when I became a boss, is what they call the mafia, right? The Army's got like the E4 mafia. Like, well, in recruiting duty, at least in the first Marine Corps district, they had like the staff and COIC, staff non-commissioned officer in charge, mafia.
Yep.
And things that get talked about in that office, that conference room, is behind a closed door. And I'm here to tell you, like, they're teaching you verbatim. If you're not following what I'm telling you to do, you're going to be held accountable. And I'm telling you to push that recruiter. You
Yep.
push them to be successful. And as we just talked about, a successful recruiter is still a very stressed out recruiter,
Yep.
especially if the rest of the office is not contributing. So you're pushing them to be successful. You're pushing them to personally want to quit because the boss, I cannot fire you, right? You are like an issued piece of gear. I'm stuck with what I got. So I'm either going to teach you to be good or I'm going to push you so hard that you quit. Because when you quit, I get a new person. Simple as that.
Yep.
Or I'm pushing you to where you want to check yourself into a loony bin, like literally like a psych ward. And, me being like a successful canvassing recruiter, I went from being like this praised person. Every time we had an all hands, like I got acknowledged in front of all my peers and everything, and it was cool. And then I become a staff NCOIC of a recruiting substation, and it was like going from 100 to 0. I was a hero, and now I'm 0, right?
Yep.
Because we were not making mission. I was a struggling staff NCOIC. And they're telling, you're not pushing them hard enough. You're not pushing them hard enough. And me, like the person I was like before I became a boss I'd like to think of myself as like a very firm, Marine. It's like, hey, we're going to do what we need to do. But brotherhood and camaraderie, is very important to me.
Yep.
And then I become a boss, and this was the first time in my whole career that I struggled. Professionally, personally, I was just struggling. I'm spending more hours at the office. My family is suffering because of that. I'm still not making mission. This is the first in my whole career. And all I'm being taught is push them harder, push them harder. Now I became a boss of the same recruiting substation that I was working with. So it's like me and you, like, we had our ups and downs, but I feel like we were pretty close. And then I become the boss, and it's like now you become the person that I'm poking. Yeah, I mean, you went off and you wrote a freaking five. You put 5 people in the Marine Corps,
Yep.
and yeah, so I leaned off of pushing you, but I think we still missed mission as an office, you
Yep.
know. So what happens the very next month? Boom, boom. I'm pushing him. I'm pushing him, y'all. And so I continue to miss our contracting mission, and we go to these staff and CIC trainings. They're telling us, you know, how crap we are, not just my
Yep.
office, but all the offices. And I remember the recruiting instructor straight up, like, you know, what came into the office, like clapping. He's clapping. And we're like, oh, what are you clapping about? And one of the staff and CICs was not there because his Marine said he wanted to hurt himself. And so he drove his Marine to a loony bin, to a psych ward. So that's the reason why. And the recruiting instructor was like clapping. And I remember I was looking to one of the guys who became a boss right there along with me. Me and him like looked at each other and were like, bro, this is weird.
Yep.
But apparently this is what pleases the command. So I come home or I come back to my RSS and I keep pushing. Boom, 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 boom. Next thing you know, that same recruiting substation that checked in a Marine to the psych ward, they lost a Marine. Like that Marine unalived himself. And it was not the Marine that originally checked himself in. It was a different one.
Yep.
And I just remember like when that happened, I mean, first of all, I couldn't believe it. And I just could not get the image of them clapping, 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 yeah, he finally did it, y'all. Everybody clap for this RSS. And now I'm sitting here thinking, like, bro, like, at what point is too much?
Yeah.
So it goes from that. I know I'm kind of long winded right here, but I really want to hammer this in because this is real stuff. It goes from this Marine checking himself in to this Marine unaliving himself to all of a sudden mission is still there. So we don't even get our chance to, like, you know, do a remembrance of, you know, like a memorial of our brother. and I remember like that taking an effect on me. And it was not long after that, you know, I'm going to completely leave his name out of this, but one of my very own Marines, his wife called him, or his wife called me saying she was worried about her husband.
Yep.
And at that point, like, it was like, you know, completely, hey, we're going. Like I took him, you know, I took him to the urgent care. He was like, no, I'm fine. She's overreacting. And at this point I was like, no, dude, like, you know, not on my watch type thing.
Yeah.
So boom, that happens. That Marine ended up just fine. He's good. That happens. And then I start struggling more on the personal side. You know, I'm going through it with my spouse and everything.
Yep.
And bro, when I'm telling you I was down bad, it was you and my other recruiters that I've been pushing and poking because that's what I've been being taught to do to be successful. Y'all were the same ones that, dude, it's gonna be okay. Like, y'all were the ones that like lifted me back up.
Yep.
The command is still like, you know, the command is still shitting on me. Oh, dude, you suck. You suck, bro. And I'm trying to be like this umbrella that is stopping that downpour from falling on you guys. But at the same time, that is like breaking my back. So when I tell you, like, hey, people got their own issues in house, we certainly did. But the hardest part of the duty is that senior leadership from upstairs that, you know, they're not in the trenches with you and they don't know what it is you're going through. And I think that there's definitely something that needs to be addressed when it comes to that. So that's my 2 cents on that matter.
Man, I agree with you, man. And you said something, again, like I eventually got to a point because of all the stuff that was happening within the RS that I wasn't even working for the head shit or anything anymore. I was working for y'all. You know what I mean? Like, I want to do this for y'all. Like, I didn't care about the outside. And that's why, like, a team mentality and everybody pulling their weight is such a big thing. Because, again, you're trying to alleviate that stress from everybody.
Yeah.
You know? Everybody's dealing with it. And then, again, you don't know what's going on with those individuals outside of their recruiting office.
Mm-hmm.
But you're talking about leadership, man. Like, that was one thing I will always, and I've told you and Lou this before, one thing I will always appreciate the shit that we let fall on you, you never let it fall back on us.
Yeah.
Believe me, man. Like everybody heard you in your office with the door shut on conference calls, and you hitting it, bro. Like, damn, like that fucked over Dom. Like, maybe we should really try to get an appointment for hours. And you get out and be like, hey, y'all want to go get something to eat? And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, and you know, like I said, like that meant a lot to everybody. And I think that's why, like, we were content, like, hey, whether we got to come in on the weekends, whether we got to work 14, 15 hours, like, let's try to do this. So, you know, you're not getting your ass handed to you all the freaking time. Because, man, like you said, like outside the higher up leadership, it wasn't what I thought it should have been. You know what I mean? And you know, all the stuff that, you know, you'd go up to the head shed, you know, on the, you know, all hands training, and you know, certain people getting talked about and made a role play in front of everybody else. Mm-hmm. Or if you miss mission and you're one of those guys on a nut, which is someone that doesn't write a contract, which I was never afraid to. But you know what I mean? Standing in front of the whole, you know, like the death horseshoe and just getting it from everybody is a crazy, crazy concept, man, that just turns around and brings so much stress. Like you alluded to earlier, man, you know, having I didn't have an appointment for 2 days. And so the, you know, the big guy is calling you like, hey, I need you to meet me in this RO with this RS. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
So you're driving 4 hours to go get chewed out for like 2-3 hours for them to, you know, you drive all the way back and still required to have two appointments the next day. And it's a nonstop cycle of just craziness, man. But leadership, good leader will definitely shape that. And again, like you and Lou did a phenomenal job about it. Because I had a couple of bosses, you know what I mean? Went from Lou to you to 2 other guys, and everybody has their own, you know, different style. You know, there's one that I had that liked to just micromanage. Hey, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm trying to talk to this parent. Yeah, and he's trying to like talk to me as I'm talking to this parent, and the parent's like, do you want me to let you go? And I'm just like, bro, like, no, like let me do me. Mm-hmm. Like that stressor is, again, it's just jumping on one thing or another on top of your shoulders, just wearing the Marine down.
Yeah,
we're not allowed to show it. It's the stuff that we handle internally, or you know, hopefully we got a boss that you're able to sit down and talk to. So you know, things are getting better. You're turning it, you know, a bad situation into a good situation, and you're making everybody understand, like, hey, I can do it. You know, if Dom, you can do it, I can do it. If you're gonna go through this, I'm gonna have your back. Just have my back when I'm going through it. And I think that's a big thing when it comes to leadership and recruiting. You gotta have those people that you gotta care.
Yeah,
you gotta care. And that duty, it was funny because I tell people like, in order to be successful on recruiting duty, you got to not give a fuck to give a fuck, if that makes sense. Like,
unfortunately, it makes perfect sense.
You know what I mean? Like, I know what I'm supposed to do, but I don't give a fuck if I don't do it, because I'm going to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And once you have leadership that understands that and is kind of encouraging it because it's working for you, like, great things freaking happen, man.
Yeah.
Great things freaking happen. And I can't stress that enough. Leadership is in an RSS, man. Like, you can't control everything in an RS, but in an RSS, if you have good leadership there, Marines will bend over backwards for that leadership, for those Marines.
Yeah.
Man. Make sure things get done. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's facts. And like one more thing that I want to touch on before we end the episode, right? When it comes to like stressors, you know, Ant and I were very good friends. And we have been, because I mean, I stopped recruiting in 2019. Right. And then we ended up getting stationed together. We were roommates there for a minute. Like, this is my brother right here. And when I was in the streets, when I was a canvassing recruiter, before Ant got there, I was just there by myself. It was pretty much me and my boss. And we still had a mission for all of the missing recruiters.
Yep.
So I was working hard. I'm super excited by the time Ant showed up. Ant showed up. I think when he showed up, he had an open mind about it, but real quick was like, nah, fuck this. You know, this ain't for me. So I was super excited. I'm trying to bring Ant under my wing. You know, we finally got a new body in here. And, you know, we go out, we have a drink, whatever. And, you know, a few months go by, Ant's struggling. You know, he's struggling. And it's because it's not easy for everybody, right? Like, you're in a brand new state that you ain't never been to before. You're expected to just go out there, know these people, find these people, whatever. It's hard. It's not for everybody, right? And sometimes it takes a little bit of time, but he's struggling. And for me, going from like, oh yeah, finally we got somebody. But now my mentality switches to like, bro, we got this guy that's not bringing nothing to the table, and that's starting to piss me off. And but hey, Ant ends up writing a contract eventually, and he's good for 1, maybe 2 a month. Sometimes I'll have an off month and not write anything. It is what it is. But so we started off good, we got bad real quick, then we got good again, to the point where we go out, we'll have a drink, we'll relax, we'll be in the office at the end of the day because we don't even want to go home. Like we take our recruiting hat off, but we're not ready to put on our family man hat, right? And so it's just this thing that happens where we just kind of gather in the office. We're not necessarily thinking about recruiting anymore, but we'll be in there, we'll play a video game or something. And there was a moment where he and I are both stressed out, both professionally and personally. And we get so close in that office because we're there together so much. I'll tell, some of my personal business. He'll tell some of his personal business. And I invite Ant out to, I don't even remember what, probably go grab a beer. And he's like, no, I can't because of whatever reason, right? Which is his right. Like, what's the matter with that? And, I'm like, in the way that I took it was like, that sucks. But, I crack a joke about something that I knew going on with him personally. And so he cracks a joke back at me about something personally. And I took that extremely personal, right? So he said what he said to me. I got so mad. I walked out the office. I was like, I'm going home. And one of the other recruiters called me back because he's on a flat and I got a tire compressor. And, so he called me back to the office to help him out. I come back to the office, and at this point, bro, I'm still thinking about it. I'm fuming, and I come busting into the office, and I'm sitting here like in my head, I'm like, I'm going to tell him exactly what I have to think about him. So I'm like pointing my finger in his face, and Ant, right, stands up to defend himself as he should, right? But me, I'm so hot and fuming right now. He stands up. I take that as a sign of aggression. And I'm like, buddy, no. And at this point, we're still both in uniforms. Our boss at the time trying to break it up. Our ribbon stacks are flying all over the place. I'm looking my boss in the face and like letting him know, like, I want you to know, I'm only letting you stop me because I'm allowing that. I'm pretty sure, like, at one point I picked him up just so he knew if I actually wanted to lay hands, we would lay hands. And meanwhile, Ant's sitting there thinking like, bro, there's this weight rack right here. I'm going to pick up, So this is just an example of, the stress level. Like, we have camaraderie. We had it then too. But it's so simple of what can set you off because of everything that's going on. And I just wanted to kind of lay that out as an example of like, hey, he and I, we're tight right now. We're tight. We're cool. But even, when you're cool with somebody, there's nobody that I would have rather to be like in them trenches, in them streets with recruiting, looking back at it. But at the moment, I was just like, bro, like, we're struggling. I got these issues at home. Like, he just said this to me. There ain't no way you might as well spit in my face. That's how I felt like at the moment. Right. Yeah. So I just wanted to add that 2 cents in there. And you got any last things that you want to say to the viewers before we go ahead and end the episode?
All I gotta say is, man, I hope y'all enjoying this again. Like, this is for y'all. This is y'all to get understanding of recruiting, how it works, and some of the things that we deal with and stuff like that. We can talk about so much more all in one because it's recruiting duty. We have freaking stories, but I want to interact with y'all. I want to answer what y'all want to know. You know what I mean? So please like, subscribe. Let us know what you want to hear. Let us know any questions you have, and we'd be happy to talk about that and get back to you.
Yeah, for sure. This podcast is, we share these stories already with one another all the time. But this podcast is put together for y'all. So if you're interested in the military and you got questions, drop them down in the comments because we can shoot a whole episode about these specific questions. So if you're looking into the military, you're a poolee or you're already enlisted with your branch and you got questions, maybe it's about jobs, or maybe my recruiter told me to shut up about something. I don't know how to feel about that. Or, you're already, you're currently serving as an active duty person, or maybe you were a recruiter as well. Reach out to us. or a DI, reach out to us, drop a comment down below, like the video, please, people. Also, make sure you got the notifications turned on. And of course, make sure you're subscribed. And we will catch you on the next episode of the After Actions podcast.